Good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. Now this week's lesson is something which I hadn't planned. Now for those of you who follow my tutorials each week, you'll know that last week we did a little lesson on how to add birds into your landscapes and a little seagull. Link above if you hadn't seen it. And so many of you asked if I could do a tutorial based on this painting I showed. So why not? I've changed it around a little, added some sailboats and a few people. So come and join me and we'll paint this step by step together. Just before we start, I thought I'd mention that I've had to leave the studio door open today because it's very warm. Now directly by the door is this lovely wisteria, which at the moment is attracting millions of bees, so it's quite likely we may get a little visit from one or two. But I'm slowly making friends with them all. Okay, today's materials. My paper is some Windsor & Newton Professional 300-pound rough. Any decent watercolour paper will do. My paints today, normal 3 primaries, Cobalt blue, Alizarin crimson, Cadmium yellow, and then some yellow ochre, Payne's grey, Cerulean blue and burnt umber. Just 3 brushes today, number 12 and number 6 round, and my mop. And all of these details can be found in the description below. Okay, so here's the drawing. There's no reference photo today as this is all made up, and I reckon you can draw this too, so no downloadable template. It's not too difficult, just make sure you don't put that horizon line straight across the middle. Okay, so now for just a little bit of masking fluid, and just here on the sails. It'll make painting the sea and sky so much easier. So what I'm doing is pre-mixing a few colours so I have them ready to paint this wet in wet sky. This is approximately 80% cobalt blue and about 20% cerulean blue. Now for the shadows on the clouds, this is an equal mix of cobalt blue and alizarin crimson, and then I'm just dropping in a little touch of yellow ochre to neutralise the colour. Right, with my mop, I'm simply wetting with clean water the whole sky area. In I go with a blue mix and my number 12 brush, nice and loose and free, making sure I leave some gaps for the clouds. I'm also trying to get the colour much stronger at the top. Now, no hesitation, straight in with the grey mix underneath all the big clouds. And try and get the clouds smaller at the bottom here, just to give that sense of perspective and distance. And all this must be done wet in wet. And still a little stronger at the top. Now, with a scrunched up tissue, I'm dabbing out just a few areas to get a much crisper edge, but not everywhere, as I still want lots of lovely soft edges too. And here with some clean water, I'm just softening the top edges of the grey shadows, as I really don't want any hard edges here. more subtle lifting out with a tissue, and a clean damp brush. Next for the sand, and this is just some nice watery yellow ochre, and I'm obviously just leaving the areas where the pools of water are. Here, just a very watery mix of burnt umber into the wet wash. Okay, so here is a case of correcting things as you go. As you can see here, I didn't line up the sky very well with the horizon line. So we'll just turn these into some distant hills and pretend we meant it all along. And this is just a mix of cobalt blue with a touch of Payne's grey. Now for these cliffs, and this is Payne's grey. And I'm just dropping into this nearer headland some yellow ochre to add a little bit of interest. Okay, so now we need to let this totally dry, so it's a perfect time for a short break and a glass of Sharp's Atlantic Pale Ale.
That's the second one you've had today.
No. And for the sea colour here, this is about 70% cobalt blue and 30% yellow. Still using my number 12 brush with quick, broad, horizontal strokes, and make sure you leave those little gaps for the waves breaking, and then let it dry. Now for these lovely dark rocks, and this is Payne's grey again. And I'm dropping in some yellow ochre and a darker value of the Payne's grey. Now this is the scrape with a credit card technique. Now I've already done a video on this, link above. And if you click on it now, you won't leave this video, it'll just save it for you at the end. Now when it's dry, I'm just coming in with a little yellow ochre to tone back the contrast. Now here is our direction of light, so I'm putting in a little shadow side to the rocks with some Payne's grey. And for this I'm now using my number 6 brush. don't know if you can hear this, but a very large bumblebee has just flown in to say hello. Wow, that's got to be the biggest bumblebee I've ever seen. It's like a hamster with wings. Come on, let's go. I'm just going to press pause for a second. Right, where are we? Now for a few quick details in the sea, and I'm using exactly the same colour again, but just a slightly darker value. And here with a touch of burnt umber for just a few details and shadows. Now for these little ponds, and I'm basically matching the colours of the sky above and then dabbing out with some tissue to suggest some reflections from the clouds. I'm also adding in some slightly darker vertical bands, wet in wet, again to suggest some subtle reflections. And here, much darker for the rock reflection. Burnt umber again here for a few more details in the sand. Perhaps there's some footprints. Now for some splattering. Test run first, and it really doesn't matter if it goes into the ponds, as this could be little pebbles sticking out. Dab out here with a tissue just to soften a touch. Okay, so next I want to bring this headland a little closer. So, Payne's grey again, with just a little clean water to soften the edge. Right, so let's remove the masking fluid. And then a very soft shadow on each sail. Okay, so let's put a few colours on the boats, and you can do these whatever colours you want. Now, I'm sure there's going to be some sailing experts who'd probably say something was wrong with these, but hey, artistic licence. With some Payne's grey for a few little details. And now for the little figures. Now I do have a more detailed tutorial on adding figures into your landscapes. I'll link above. And this is Brian and Audrey off for a nice pub lunch. Now I'm painting them all fairly dark for now, and then I'll add some colour to them later. This is Phil, who looks like for some reason he owns a pet fox, but hey. Here, just a few burnt umber shadows to help ground them onto the beach. So here, taken from last week's tutorial on painting birds into your landscape, link above, darker ones on the lighter background. Then lighter white ones here with my pastel pencil in the darker areas. It's magic scalpel time, and I'm just scratching out a few little wave details. Now for a little bit of smudging with a damp tissue, and this can work really well for getting some rough texture from the paper. As I said earlier, I just want to get a little colour into these figures, so I'm using some pastel pencils, but gouache or acrylic paint can also work well. And there we go. Knowing when to stop is the key. Overworking is all artists' worst nightmare. So I think we're done. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and you'll give it a go. Coming up now are a few paintings from the Facebook group. Now this is from last week's tutorial, the little cartoon seagull, and we suggested that you might want to leave a little caption on some of them. Wow, some of you are dafter than I am. Anyway, have a look at those and hope you enjoy them. As always, I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment, put the thumbs up, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Cheers now.
Thank you.